Welcome back to Toffee Booze, your source for all things Everton. I'm Ollie Hayes, and today I'm with the Everton News 24/7 for Tuesday, the 17th of June. So let's get straight into it with today's headline. And obviously, today's headline is largely centred around the Kyle Walker saga. So, following on from yesterday's breaking news from Football Insider about our initial interest in Kyle Walker, Mike McGrath, Ben Jacobs, and Fabrizio Romano are all among the names that have reported that we've made an approach to Manchester City to sign him. Fabrizio Romano has also gone on to report that David Moyes has approved of Kyle Walker being a target for right back of Everton, but also we face competition from the likes of Fenerbahce, among other clubs which are yet to show their interest. But before I give you my opinion on the Kyle Walker saga, we did an X poll yesterday, and of around 3,700 votes, 45% were in favour, 15% were unsure, and 40% were against Kyle Walker signing for Everton. So it's a relatively mixed bag, really. Obviously, there's been various people saying that he's past his best, he's lost that yard of pace. People saying that it's good experience, good winning mentality to bring to the team. I'm a little bit unsure. I'm kind of sat on the fence. I see both sides to it. Obviously, it's kind of similar to signing players like Fabian Delph and players like that have played for a top team and have that pedigree of winning trophies and being successful, but are maybe past that peak, past that prime of their career, and have lost the required pace or the required ability to really play at the top level. Listen, Kyle Walker, there's no doubt about it that he's once was a top right back. He still has the attributes to be a top right back, but obviously his one big attribute was his pace, and as you get older, you lose that yard of pace. So I don't know. I'm kind of on the fence, really. I think if it was a sensible fee and a sensible wage for Kyle Walker, and it brings in some well-needed experience, obviously losing the likes of Ashley Young and players like that, you're going to need to replace that experience in the squad. You can't just sign young and up-and-coming players because it wouldn't work. So if it was a sensible fee, a sensible wage for Kyle Walker, I don't see why not. I think David Moyes is very strenuous in his process of finding the right characters to bring into the squad. So if David Moyes were to approve, I think I would be quite happy to trust his judgment on that one. But as I said before, it's an aging right back. You're not going to get any sell on value for Kyle Walker, but in this summer rebuild, we're going to need players that don't have sell-on value and players that are just here to do a job for 1 or 2 years and bring some much needed experience in. So I'm kind of sat on the fence. If it were a sensible fee, I'd say yeah. If it's anything over like 150, 160 grand a week, which I think is a little bit less than what he's currently on now, I'd maybe stay clear and try and find a different target. But amongst these reports, The Guardian have also reported that they've mentioned Kenny Tete, Vladimir Sofal, and Kyle Walker-Peters are amongst potential free agent candidates coming to Everton. So we also asked you on this one, of around 3,000 votes, 24% were in favour of signing Kyle Walker, 3% only were in favour of signing Vladimir Sofal, 56% were in favour of signing Kyle Walker-Peters, and 17% were in favour of signing Kenny Tete, who's recently just left Fulham. We'll start with Kyle Walker. Obviously, I've mentioned him briefly. The 24%, I think that's probably hinging on the wages and what we'd have to sort of pay Manchester City if it were to be a nominal fee, if it were to be a loan. So I can see why that's pretty low in the standings. Vladimir Sofal at 3%, I'm a little bit surprised by, considering it would probably be the lowest in terms of wages of all the names I've just mentioned. I almost felt like it was going to be a formality, Vladimir Sofal, at the start of the season, well, certainly at the start of the window when David Moyes was obviously going to be in charge for this big rebuild. I thought it was almost a formality that he would come in. I think he would be on the lowest of wages. He would command the lowest signing on fee. And obviously David Moyes knows him, trusts him, has experience of working with him. So that one maybe potentially could be one that might just be a formality anyway. But Kyle Walker-Peters, I definitely agree with the 3,000 voters on the 56% of them wanting Kyle Walker-Peters. I think he's the most versatile option. You'd probably have to pay him more wages than the rest of them, but I think he's the sort of better profile in terms of age, versatility and Premier League experience. He's got obviously abundance of Premier League experience. I know he was in a pretty shocking Southampton side last season, but that being said, versatile, can play left back, right back, is good cover for both of those positions, and would probably walk in as our starting right back from minute one of the Premier League season. So I can see why the voters have gone with 56% for Kyle Walker-Peters, and then 17% Kenny Tete. That one's probably a bit of an outsider one. Showed decent spells at Fulham. I think there's definitely a player in there, but he would probably be my third, maybe fourth choice. I think I'd even probably place Kyle Walker ahead of him, just purely because Kyle Walker has that little bit more pedigree, that little bit more experience than Kenny Tete. But there's no doubt about it, there is a player in there, but I don't think he would probably walk in as our starting right back if we were to sign a different name. But yeah, that sort of wraps up that Kyle Walker saga. In other news, Santi Ayouna has reported that Rennes over in France are interested in Idrissa Gana Gueye. Despite him being in advanced talks with Everton over a potential new deal. This one, I can't really see happening. Hopefully, we can get the Idrissa Gana Gueye deal swiftly over the line and he can be an Everton player, obviously going into Bramley Moore next season. But I think it's probably too little too late for teams over in France to maybe stake a claim to Idrissa Gana Gueye. So fingers crossed we can get that one over the line. But as I said before, Santi Ayouna has reported that Rennes over in France are interested in taking Idrissa Gana Gueye on a free transfer. This obviously comes like after the initial interest at the start of the summer with Paris FC. I think they were one of the clubs that were interested in Idrissa Gana Gueye. But no, as I said before, fingers crossed we can get that one over the line. We can get that one swiftly wrapped up and he can be an Everton player going into Bramley Moore next season. Elsewhere, Pete O'Rourke of Football Insider, he has indicated that Everton are set to fail in the effort of signing Michael Cooper of Sheffield United. Michael Cooper has come out and said that he wants to remain a starting goalkeeper after only a year at Sheffield United. He only left Plymouth a year ago for Sheffield United for around £2 million. Listen, I think this one was always going to be a non-starter. Jordan Pickford is obviously a fantastic goalkeeper. And also, I think Michael Cooper is one to watch definitely for the future. I think he's sort of on a little bit of a meteoric rise from playing to Plymouth to obviously Sheffield United. Was so close to getting into the Premier League with Sheffield United, but I think it's probably our strongest area on the pitch is goalkeeper. So it's not worth spending what would be maybe £20 million from Sheffield United when we can focus that money, those efforts somewhere else, and on alternate areas of the pitch. But that is it for today's news. It was obviously largely centered around the Kyle Walker saga and the breaking news last night from Football Insider about our initial interest for Kyle Walker. So let me know your thoughts in the comments about him. I'm sort of staying neutral and sitting on the fence. I can see both sides of the argument, but I'd be interested to know what you're thinking about Kyle Walker and his potential of joining Everton Football Club. And then also the likes of Vladimir Sofal, Kyle Walker-Peters and Kenny Tete. What are your thoughts on those ones? But that is all from me today. Make sure you like, comment and subscribe, and I'll speak to you soon.